through our research and our outreach and education.
And what are some of the areas that you can go to these workshops in?
Okay. We are organized along 4 major areas, and you would really think of them as specializations in the college and within extension. And the first area that I could talk a little bit about would be aquaculture. And in our college, we have the critical mass and the leadership for aquaculture research and development in Ohio. And the program is based on very applied research work that looks at things that a lot of farmers are trying on their farms, but we do that in a way to help potential new farmers answer questions about the production, the management, the technical side, as well as the economics and marketing of getting into fish farming. And we focus a lot on yellow perch is the species that we spend the most time on. We follow that up with work in bluegill production as well as freshwater prawn. And we have just a very beginning, there's a lot of interest and a lot of market openings for largemouth bass. And there's a huge ethnic market that's very much interested in largemouth bass on the East Coast in the major cities of New York City and up and down the East Coast as a live market. And so we're beginning to transition a little bit of our effort toward largemouth bass. But traditionally we focused primarily on yellow perch, and we do, as I say, all aspects. A big emphasis to date has been the genetic improvement of yellow perch. And just like any farm-raised animal, whether it be beef or pork or broilers, we're interested in production efficiency. So a big part of the way that you can increase the efficiency is to select the better genetics. So we have invested a lot of research trials and work on selecting for the fastest growing and the best feed conversion of our yellow perch. And we've had a fair amount of success to where we've improved somewhere between 35 and 40% growth rates in our improved genetics as a result of our program relative to what we've started with and what a lot of traditional fish farmers are used.
So when you say live market, that is live fish going to the market, that's not on ice?
Right, Luke. What we are a little less familiar with here, although any fisherman will tell you no fish tastes better than when you catch it and clean it immediately and get it into the frying pan, that it's never improves with age. And this is the idea. A lot of immigrants with Asian roots really prefer to see the fish live and buy the fish live, that they know it's very fresh, and they like to take that home and prepare it in their own home and after seeing it live. So we don't have so many fish markets here in our region that would have live fish tanks that you can see fish swimming and you can pick out, I'll take that one and maybe that one. But in a lot of the large cities, in specialized markets, that is a potential. And that's where we see these bluegill and the largemouth bass especially. The yellow perch, that tends toward fillets, and it might be frozen or it might be even seasoned and provided through a retail outlet or a restaurant operation. Excellent.
I would fish with my dad when I was younger, and he would show me how to gut the fish, and and it was one of those things I would, if I'm going to eat fish, I would rather buy it from the market already gutted and ready filleted for me. But I think that's really interesting.
Yep.
And
well, I think that that's a difference in culture.
Yeah.
And that, even though we have many fishermen on Lake Erie, and I'm not a successful fisherman. I'm a fisherman, but not a successful one. But when they come in with a catch, they like to take it to the cleaning station and let somebody else do the work, as opposed to them filleting them themselves in many cases. So I think just like a lot of things in our food system, we've grown very accustomed to having specialized food processors, food distributors take care of all those functions that in many traditional societies, it's more from the farm right to the plate.
So you said there was 4 areas. What are some other?
Okay. Another area that we specialize in is small fruits and specialty crops. We've kind of expanded that, and I'll get to that in just a minute. But our traditional focused area was based on berry production especially. And this would include most of the berries that we're familiar with here in southern Ohio and in our state. Strawberries, raspberries, both black raspberries as well as red raspberries, blackberries themselves, blueberries. We have just started up with a program to test new what we're calling super berries, which are acacia berries and loganberries, in some plots over at Piketon. And matter of fact, we have a workshop tomorrow that will be focused on these newer berries that aren't traditional here in our part of the country. Addition to that program in berries, we have a wine grape trial, and there's much more interest over the years, not only in Ohio, but in every state, locally produced items, and that includes wine grapes. And so we have traditionally not had very many wineries in southern Ohio. It's concentrated up along Lake Erie and Ashtabula County, and our Research and Development Center has a large research area at Kingsville that focuses on wine grapes. But that's a long way from southern Ohio, and we did have a few wineries and grape producers here in the southern part of the state that felt like, you know, that there could be something down here that would promote the industry. So we have a wine grape trial over at Piketon now, and we're testing different varieties and different trellis systems with these wine grapes. And then a more recent addition, in addition to the super berries that I mentioned, is hops. And people that are out and about know that craft brewing and home brewing is very, very popular and growing in the state of Ohio. I think we're above 200 microbreweries at this point in the state and still growing. And so another way to differentiate those microbrews is if there can be locally produced ingredients. Well, one of the ingredients that can be produced locally is hops. So there's very excellent interest in this by the brewers, and so we now have a trial dealing with hops over at South Centers, and that has been just a phenomenally level of interest on the part of growers as well as the craft brewers. We conducted a conference and workshop up at Worcester, Ohio, and had over 400 people in attendance over a period of 3 days. And it was combined with the Craft Brewers Association as well as these hop growers, which are really the linkage that needs to happen. The hops producers need to be producing what the craft brewers are interested in. And right now, if it's grown in Ohio, that's good enough. But of course, there's going to develop a time when they have specific interest in certain varieties and things relative to hops. But there's a long way to go, but we're making a start, and there's actually a hop growers guild which has established to bring growers together, to learn together, and to possibly become more systematic in the way that they develop the industry. And we think this is a very positive development as a industry gets off the ground here in Ohio. Likewise, we do workshops, seminars for our berry producers, and they can come to our field nights and actually experience pruning techniques and learn how to do that. They can learn the fertilization, the irrigation, the variety selection, and then we try to give information on marketing as well for our berry producers.
So have you been able to sample any of the berries or the wine or maybe the microbreweries?
Well, I'll tell you, I have to confess that I have not, I'm a teetotaler by nature at this stage of life, but I know that some of our grapes have gone to Worcester, where we have an enology program, which is winemaking, and been converted into wine, and it has been taste tested by different folks. I don't know whether, you know, our varieties wouldn't be enough quantity to actually sell, but then and we're not wanting to set ourselves up as a competitor to the commercial side anyway, but a lot of these same varieties would be available from local wineries, even here in the Rio Grande and Gallipolis areas. And the hops, that one I am aware that as part of the conference in the evening, I know some of the microbreweries did supply some samples for the attendees after dinner or during the dinner hour at our Worcester conference.
I'm sure everyone was excited.
Well, I think there's a lot of interest, that's for certain, and it's quite unique in terms of some of the flavors and some of the names that they give the flavors.
Yeah. So, talking about the horticulture side, we could go into transition really easily into the soil and water. If you would like to talk about.
Sure. Sure, that's a third area that we're active with the research and extension program at Piketon. And in that program area, it's just a little bit different of twist. And the idea there is that, I mentioned aquaculture, lots of water involved, lots of environmental considerations, and overall sustainability. Same way when we talk about any agricultural crop or production activity, there's the idea that we're using the natural resources, the soil and water, as inputs, and we want to make sure that we're good stewards of our soil and water here in the region and across the state. So we have a program that looks a lot at different management strategies in terms of how the soil is tilled, what crops are rotated in order to maintain the quality of the soil. And we're also have done a good bit of work on cover crops. And this is a relatively newer incarnation of what old-time farmers would know as green manure crops, where you grew up something green and then plowed it under, and then that would nourish the corn crop or whatever it was you were planting. Cover crops, we're discovering, are a way to sustain and nurture the biodiversity in the soil. There are many microorganisms, as any farmer knows, about earthworms, but it's discovered, and farmers are becoming more aware of how mitochondria and can't even see them, are active in the soil. Well, in the wintertime, when there are no roots and the soil becomes more or less fallow and frozen, of course, they have nothing to work on. Well, the idea is to get a cover crop on going into the winter, that there are some live roots at the beginning at least to sustain this. And that actually ends up improving the soil quality for the next crop. And we're discovering that levels of applied fertilizer in the way of commercial fertilizers can be somewhat reduced by introduction of the cover crops. But really the phenomenal thing is, and we all know in agriculture that soil is the basis of life. If we lose our soil, we are done as a existence on Earth. Now, using cover crops and trying to build soil can actually increase the organic matter. And a lot of soils have been depleted over time of organic matter, but we have examples in the state of Ohio where organic matter has been raised by several percentage points by adoption of no-till cropping practices, crop rotations, and cover crops. And this is quite exciting for the future of Ohio agriculture. And 5 years ago, this was just beginning to barely be talked about, but there's a lot more adoption now, a lot more interest trying to work out the systems by which, in our major cropping areas, of course, it's corn and soybeans. How can you go in during August, early September and interseed this cover crop and get it established and coming on even as you harvest the soybean and corn crop, so that you get that crop started to get that beneficial activity in the soil? And that takes a lot of change on the part of farmers, new techniques, equipment. Maybe it's flying it on, maybe it's using high-wheeled sprayers and broadcasters to get those seeds on. Some cases have tried to combine it with the combine itself, that you're spreading some seed even as you harvest the corn and soybeans. But another aspect I want to mention while we're on the soil and water program is bioenergy crops. And now this one fits in, when our fuel prices about 5 years ago were inching up toward $4 and went past $4 and looked like they were going to go toward $5, and people were talking about peak oil and it's the end of low-cost energy. There was just a lot of interest in biofuels, and we established trials of native grass at Piketon, as well as giant miscanthus. And this is an imported from, I think it started in Africa, where miscanthus grows wild. And some people in this area would know it as an ornamental crop. You'll see it in people's yards. It's a very tall grass plant with a lot of biomass. So we have 2 or 3 different trials of this over at Piketon, and we're now beginning to harvest this and make test burns of this in heat generation facility up at Chillicothe that we're collaborating with to learn more about the heat value and possible use as a co-fire, potentially with wood chips or maybe even with coal, as a way to extend the availability of renewable energy. And so we're excited about it. $2 gas doesn't make people quite as excited about biomass as it does when it looks like it's 4 to 5. So we, though, have the long-term view and realize that somewhere, someday, there's a finite amount of fossil fuel in the earth, and we're going to need these alternative sources. And so if we can continue this work and begin to find some of the answers and some of the questions worked out as to how this could be adopted on the farms, we think we'll be doing a good service.
And part of that, what you're looking towards could be put towards a business plan, if you'd want to talk about business development.
That's our fourth program area over at Piketon. And it really, if you step back away from our center, we are focused a lot on the 3 areas that I talked about. But as I spoke, you would readily recognize that the reason we have aquaculture, the reason we have a berry program, the reason we're doing soil and water is to improve the economic outlook for agricultural and rural areas across southern Ohio. And so when we get to the business development network, we think more broadly than simply those agriculture. But those are part of what we try to develop business and help look at the finance and look at the marketing in those areas. But the business development network can help you with any kind of a business idea, from a coffee shop to a pizza shop to a mini mart, whatever it might be. It might be a manufacturing company, might be a distribution company, might be an internet-based service of some sort. But our counselors can come and meet one-on-one with you. We operate in conjunction with Ohio Development Services Agency. We have contract to deliver these services, so they're free and open to the public. And we work with individuals on their business plan and really ask a series of questions up front about what their business idea is, how they can finance it, and what their goals and aspirations are. And a lot of that's the basis of a business plan. And we don't necessarily write the business plan, but we help with a template, with an outline that really causes people to think through the business in a deeper, more structured way than maybe they have when they see kind of the grand idea and the vision. But there's a lot that goes into operationalizing and trying to take the steps toward having that vision come true. And a business plan is a way to kind of operate this business on paper, and especially when it comes to the cash flows and the amount of capital needed and whether there's going to be loans involved. Reality sets in, and that's the nature of our economy, and we try to help individuals as much as we can with that business plan. Our program also has lots of workshops that people can come to that are, learning about different aspects of business. We get into labor law and regulations and how to submit the payroll taxes, how to comply with labor law. We do that in conjunction with Department of Labor. We do workshops on marketing. We do it on money for small business. A variety of different ways are a component of our business development. I think I want to mention just another component of the program that really grew out of this work in terms of counseling. At South Center, since 2005, we opened a business incubator. And people that are familiar with farm ideas or in a hospital, an incubator is an ideal environment, if you will, for something to happen, with the nurturing of a child or the bringing forth of chicks from eggs, the incubator idea that most people think of, at least agricultural people. The idea of a business incubator is to give birth to new businesses and to give them a nurturing environment where they can start their business and take steps that would get them to success more quickly than they might on their own. And so we've had this going. We're in our 10th year, and we have had graduates of our program that have gone out and invested in the community with new facilities, new office structures, new headquarters buildings. We've had an excellent response. We have kept the facility pretty much better than 90% occupied over this period of time. So it has served a niche in our region, and we have had success within the university as well as a model for how the university can become a bit more entrepreneurial, because as we constructed this facility, we were able to get capital money through grants sources and a bit of support from the state's capital budget that the university can tap into. But the mandate was, well, you have to operate this Endeavor Center as a business itself. It has to pay its own way. Okay. And that ultimately, we want to be a model to these entrepreneurs and small business people that are trying to start. We want to say and provide an example that we're having to do the same thing with the Endeavor Center. And so it's somewhat different. I won't say that it's apples and apples exactly like operating as a standalone business, because there's certain overlap from the resources we have at the university. But in the grand scheme of things, it does pay its way up to this point, and we're very thankful for the business partners. We started out saying tenants, but that were in our building paying leases and so forth. But we view them very much as our business partners, and that if they're successful, we'll be successful. Their success is our success, and that's what we're there to do, is try to help them. Excellent.
I understand you also work at, is it, how do I say this? It was written down for me.
Washington.
Washington. It looks like washing. Excuse me. Washington University, in addition to Ohio State.
I think you're referring back to my background, that prior to coming to Ohio State University here at Piketon, I was a faculty member at Washington State University, which is the land grant, which is the, kind of the equivalent of Ohio State in the Northwest United States at Pullman, Washington. Out there, I was a faculty member in the Department of Agricultural Economics. I had a statewide extension program in agribusiness development. So it was kind of a good training and background for me in coming to Piketon, because if we're anything, it's agribusiness development. Yeah. And so that extension program dealt with a lot of things in the vegetable area, because Washington is a very, very diverse agricultural state. And due to the idea that there are over 200 sunny days in the state of Washington. Now, most people in Ohio, including me before I went there, think of Washington living up to its kind of nickname, the Evergreen State. As we're the Buckeye State, they're the Evergreen State, totally covered with trees. Not so. It is true for maybe 2/3, maybe 60% of the state, but there's about 1/3 to 40% of that state that is really desert, what's called the Columbia Basin. Very low rainfall, but an abundance of irrigation water from the Columbia Snake Rivers. Well, any farmer knows that if you can control the rainfall, the moisture content of the soil, you can grow most anything. And Washington is truly that. So they grow lots of vegetables for processing. A lot of our frozen vegetables, canned vegetables come out of the state of Washington. And I was there on the faculty 10 years and also taught classes in agricultural marketing, agribusiness finance, farm management, as well as agribusiness management and agribusiness finance, I think I already mentioned. So that was a good background for me to come back to Ohio. I am a Buckeye myself in Ohio, just north and a little bit west of here from Fayette County, and did my academic work at Ohio State University. So being here is a lot like being back home to me.
So if someone were interested in coming to OSU South Centers and want to do a workshop,
sure,
how would they go about that?
We try to get the word out broadly. We have a lot of database list of people that have shown interest in our programs. We try to put those out. Look at our website, southcenters.osu.edu. They could call us, 740-289-2071. Just hit O, and our office staff are aware of the programs that we have. Or I guess those would be the primary ways. We don't get to do a lot of advertising in papers, but we rely on our database as well as newsletters and other outlets, and probably some of the programs here at Rio Grande. We'll make announcements through the avenues here.
certainly it doesn't hurt to have a show about it as well.
Absolutely.
Really?
Absolutely. This is another component of our way to get the word out about what we're doing over at Piketon, as well as upcoming programs specifically.
Well, it was very interesting talking with you, and thank you for letting me interview you.
I've enjoyed it, Luke.
So,
you did a good job, and I think we got the waterfront covered at Piketon.
Excellent.